Hi, I'm Annie Botticelli, and welcome to my May 2020 horoscope report for you. I am over the moon excited to announce the launch of my new book, Planetology: How to Align with the Natural Rhythms of the Universe. And this is published through Watkins Media in the UK, and facilitating distribution worldwide is our partner, Penguin Random House. You can look up Annie Planetology in any search and you will find it for pre-order, and you can get more information about it. I'm very excited, and I hope it really helps you because that's the intention of my creating it. So I'm going to give you a quick introduction here, just about some general things to know, and then we'll get into some a lot of sign-specific things, really focused on Venus retrograde, where it's going to show up for your sign, and the special things to know about that, and also where this June 5th eclipse is going to show up in your chart. This is really critical because we are entering eclipse season very hot and heavy as of May. You might start to see eclipse manifestations even in April, 6 to 8 weeks before. The eclipses tend to get very hot, and we've got this grand finale of the Capricorn Cancer eclipse cycle. So lots of things involving home and work, and as we see now with what's going on with the coronavirus and all of the breakdown of things in the world that seem to be related to the coronavirus, but really all of this is astrological. A lot of topics of home and work and working from home and distance, everything about distance and distancing is coming up in a big way. So this eclipse cycle is going to bring a lot of information about how this is all going to go. Definitely stay tuned after this video. I will be putting at the end my video called The Astrology of 2020, and that's going to be my input on the coronavirus as it relates to the astrology, things that are going on with the systems in the world, and how I believe we can make the most of the opportunities that are coming and deal with the challenges that are also here. Okay, so definitely listen for that after this video. So there are 3 eclipses, one on June 5th, a lunar eclipse at 15 degrees of Sagittarius. Then we have on June 21st a solar eclipse. And then we have on July 5th a lunar eclipse at 13 degrees of Capricorn. Okay, so in the May report, I'm going to show you where this June eclipse is happening. In the June report, I'm going to talk about the locations of the 2nd June eclipse, where that is going to be for you. And in the July report, I'll talk about the location of the July eclipse. Okay, so between 3 horoscopes, we'll cover all of the energies, how that's going to look for you. Venus retrograde is very, very major right now because we are actually in it May 13th through June 25th. Venus, the ruler of love and relationships, money and finances, and beauty and self-esteem and design projects and artistic expression. Major rulership of the domains of Venus are coming up in a big way. And I have created lots of resources for you, including a Venus retrograde blog that you can find if you just search for Annie Botticelli Venus retrograde. You'll find all of these resources that I have. And in these May videos, I am going to show you in the chart where that is for you. I've had a lot of requests to go back to the format where I show you the charts and show you more specific detail for the early, middle, and late degree placements, what certain things look like. From the last eclipse cycle, I had some terrible endings that happened then that I had to work with, so I wasn't able to put the extra time in with doing the charts, but now in this month I'm bringing them back. So definitely please let me know if you want me to keep doing that, because I do listen to your feedback. I listen to nice feedback. If people are mean, I don't listen to them. So anything nicely worded, I definitely take into consideration. So we've got a really very important month here. 2020 is one of the most pivotal years of our time. And so May is another cog in the wheel of this time. So I'm going to go into a lot of those details of what that Venus retrograde specifically is going to look like. So let's go ahead and drill down to this sign specific. Oh wait, one more thing. I am creating a free course on claiming victory from viruses. Okay, this topic is very near and dear to my heart, which I will explain in detail in the actual course, why I know so much about this. Spirit has been prepping me to assist with viruses for a while, and there's just way too much information on this topic for me to bring out in the videos. So I'm going to create a whole class about this that I'll continue adding to, so you can register for that class at lumelife.com, L-U-M-E life.com. Search for Luminous Life Multiversity in my name, and you can see there in the free course listings that you can enroll in the school and in the course for free, so that you can understand how to protect yourself from viruses, understand what they're doing. And I also will go into quite a bit of detail about the bigger picture of how viruses are part of our human evolution and how to work with them in the video called Astrology of 2020 that will follow this video. Okay, so now let's go into the sign-specific movement of Venus retrograde and what types of implications we can see from this and that placement of the June 5th eclipse for you.
Hello, Virgo friends. So now we're going to go into lots of details about what you can expect with the energies at play as it relates to the Virgo placements. I'm going to bring the charts on the screen, and then you can see visually the things that I'm talking about. Okay, so to best use this information I'm going to give you, some of the things we talk about will be true for all Virgo placements, and when that's the case, I will let you know. Other times, it might shift a little bit depending on exactly where in the 30-degree Virgo spectrum you are. So our early born are basically August born, or 0 to 9 degrees. And do know if you have your moon in Virgo or Virgo rising, this reading is also for you equally as for the sun placements. Middle degree Virgo placements around September 1st through 10th and 10 to 19 degrees. Late Virgo around September 11th through the rest of the sign, or 20 to 29 degrees. What we're going to talk about today has to do with some general planetary movements as they relate to Virgo placements, and we're going to talk about Venus retrograde and exactly where that's going to take place for you and the kinds of things you can expect from that and how you can best use the energy. And we're also going to talk about where that lunar eclipse, that June 5th lunar eclipse in Sagittarius is for you, and I'll show you in the chart. Okay, so the first thing to note is we still have, okay, right now I'm using the early chart, but the things I'm talking about currently are for all Virgo placements. So Mercury and the Sun are moving through Taurus, and this is taking place in the first couple of weeks, mostly into the third week with the Sun moving into Gemini. But as the month of May moves on, the Taurus energies are going to fade in their influence, okay? But for the time they're there, this is beautiful for Virgo placements because, as we always talk about, that 120-degree angle, it's called a trine, the most favorable in all of astrology. Mercury that rules communication, the Sun that rules how you shine and your creativity, is combining in a favorable aspect with your Virgo placement. So that's supportive. Then those placements are going to move into Gemini and join Venus, which is going to be retrograde there, May 13th through June 25th, but we'll get definitely more into that. And Gemini placements are not as smooth for Virgo placements. Now, please don't misunderstand when I say, it's very interesting to see human psychology is revealed very much in the types of interactions that we have. And so I hear people say sometimes, oh, well, this is going to be bad, or you said this is going to be bad. And I never say it's going to be bad. When it relates to these, short-term transits. Okay, there are always positive and negative attributes, but I never say this whole month is going to be terrible for everybody. There's nothing good about it. Just forget it. I would never say that. But some people hear something I say and they take it that way. So I want to make sure you're hearing me. As the Sun and Venus and Mercury move through Gemini, it makes awkward angles with Virgo placements. That gets to be uncomfortable. The angles that they are asserting are pressure angles. Pressure angles cause discomfort and create us to take action on something. Okay, so you might get uncomfortable when these aspects are occurring and need to take action on something, but a lot of times the actions that are taken can turn out to be positive. That's why something isn't just bad, why I would never call it that. It's because it's happening for a reason. We may have what we think is a bad experience sometimes, but ultimately it's moving towards our good. All right, so be prepared to have to do some, to do some things that might be a little bit out of your comfort zone. And in general, just the energies in Gemini are super scattered, and the energies in Virgo are super organized. So when someone who has these Virgo placements that have their ducks in a row and Gemini energy comes spiraling in, it reminds me of well, of a bull in a china shop, right? But also like of kids. You ever see kids at that age, like 3 to 6 or something, they like walk in circles and they're like, they have food all over their faces and they're like, swinging near the couch, and they're like, don't get the grease on the couch. And they're swinging and they don't like move in a straight line. They're erratic and unpredictable, and they're charming and wonderful, just like Gemini energy is. But it just doesn't flow really well with the, this more organized, directed energy of Virgo. So if you just kind of understand it that way, it's like the experience maybe of having a bunch of kids in your house swirling around, not going in a finite direction with your breakables and your white stuff. Okay. So now I want to talk about Venus retrograde. This is a really important transit because it takes place over 4 months. All right, let me get some of these things off the main part so I can do a little drawing here. It'll just take me a second. Okay, so Venus rules love, beauty, and self-esteem. Those are lips. There's a beautiful lady over there, right? And money. And with the beauty, that's also design projects and things like that. So there are a lot of there's a lot of domain of rulership that Venus has. That's why I talk about it for so long. And things are going to come up. Things in these areas get called into question. Things from the past come in, sometimes in a challenging way, sometimes in a great way. Basically, when Venus is in retrograde, you've got your Venus retrograde goggles on, okay? So you put these goggles on in Venus retrograde, and you can't really see very clearly through them. So decisions about love, decisions about money can sometimes be warped. And after Venus goes direct and the glasses come off and you have your normal vision back, a lot of times people say, what was I thinking? For the decisions they made, about the decisions they made during the Venus retrograde, especially about the Venus ruled things. So I can't cover all of the material that I've created for you in this video, nor would you really want me to, because it's just so much. But I have a 12 blog series. I have 2 additional blogs. I have a video. So if you just search for Annie Botticelli Venus Retrograde, if you go to anniehelpsyou.com, my website, you'll find all of these resources. I especially recommend the Venus Retrograde video and the corresponding Venus Retrograde do's and don'ts blog, because in the blog I update it over time. When people ask questions and then post to the video, I'll put additions to the blog. So it's just gotten longer and more detailed with caveats and what about this situation, and it's very, very lengthy and descriptive. So my suggestion is that you thoroughly research and understand the energy of this transit, because with me, I'm always trying to teach you how to fish, not just give you the fish. I give you some fish, but then I also say, okay, well, also here, learn to fish, so that in the event that I'm busy or I have something else going on, that you can still get your fish, right? Okay, so Venus is retrograde from May 13th through June 25th. There's a shadow period beforehand that starts April 9th or started April 9th, depending on when you're listening to this, and lasts until around July 29th, 30th. Very important note about these shadow periods. I had a comment that was a little bit comical to me on a post for my previous month's videos. And someone said, Annie, I don't buy shadow periods before retrogrades. Okay, and so this is kind of comical to me as a scientist, because people are thinking of something that's scientific as like a subjective truth. And so I didn't invent, Annie did. I did not invent these shadow periods. Okay, so they're not a decision that I made because I'm the only person maybe talking about them. It's not because I made them up. It's because of a lot of factors. Part of it is that a lot of people just don't know about them. People doing astrology, a lot of them, they don't even know about this. The second thing is they don't know how to calculate the shadow periods. The third thing is they haven't tracked them, so they don't know what I know about them. Or they do know, they can calculate it, and they don't want to confuse people because their work is more mainstream, where they are catering to people who are not interested in studying and they don't want to lose them in the confusion. But I'm not worried about that because I'm an astrology teacher. So I'm giving you all these details. But it's important to know that these dates with these shadow periods, those are mathematical calculations based on the degree that the planet goes retrograde and the degree that the planet goes back direct, okay? Those are real, and that's why this is a 4-month long storyline here to be aware of, okay? So you want to be really cautious. things get called into question, as I said, in the areas ruled by Venus: love, relationships, money, design projects, self-esteem, things you want to do to your body, your wardrobe, your image. But it's not always the best time to make a final decision or a permanent, long-lasting, hard to change, expensive decision because you're not seeing clearly, okay? There will always be exceptions to this, but this is the general rule. So now let's look at the, actually really quick, okay? So Venus is retrograde in the sign of Gemini. So that means everyone in the cosmos is going to experience the energy of Venus retrograde in Gemini, which brings things, and you can see my blog on this topic. I have Venus retrograde in Gemini very specifically. You can look at the details. But, Gemini rules travel, communication, siblings, aunts, uncles, relatives that are not your parents or kids, basically. So things involving money and these relatives, things involving money and expenditures and your communication devices, things involving money, how you used to make money editing, and now you have an opportunity coming back, you see? So we just combine the energies. So we take all the energies of Venus and we add all the energies of Gemini, and then we add the energies of retrograde, and then what that equals is all the potentials of this time, which are infinite. Okay, but that's how you understand it. So the more you know about each of these things, the more you can mishmash them together and say, oh, right, okay, that's what's going on there. All right, so many people are going to have to buy new devices, cars, things like that. If it comes up and you can't avoid it, do it. And even, Venus retrograde is not the same as Mercury retrograde. Making an expenditure, it doesn't carry the same types of energy with Mercury as Mercury does, but what you have to watch out for is your expenditures. Let's say you go buy this expensive car, Venus is in retrograde. By the time it goes direct or sooner, you might not be able to afford it anymore. Venus retrograde casts a lot of things into question, or you buy a brand new car, it gets cosmetic damage, because it rules the aesthetics of it. And that happens to be hard to fix, and maybe then you don't have the money to fix it. So you have this beautiful whatever it is with all this cosmetic damage because you bought it high and you couldn't afford it, you see? But this is a bargain hunter's delight. Venus retrograde is a bargain hunter's delight. So I always recommend that you save up money before this transit so that when people are not my viewers, basically, and they're dumping off things of value like crazy because they're not seeing clearly and they're just trying to get rid of it or they're emotional about it, then you can scoop up a lot of deals. And I'm not saying that I like capitalizing on this situation. I'd rather those people watch my videos and not do that. But since they're not, I'm letting you know that if you need to buy something, you could get a good deal on it. You just want to make sure that you can afford what you're getting into and you won't miss the money if something happens retrograde-like with it. Okay, so Venus is going retrograde from 21 degrees back to 5 degrees in Gemini. So we can see this is the early degree chart. And if you forget where you're at, you can rewind and go back to the spectrum of who the early people are. Basically retrograde almost completely in the 10th house. Some of you that are a little later in the early spectrum, like getting towards, the 7th, 8th, 9th day of the sign, you might have some of these whispers into the retrograde in the 9th house. We'll talk about what this means. I just want to get everybody on the board here. Okay. That out of the way. Okay, so with the middle degree placements, 21 degrees is about there, 5 degrees is about there, so you all will have Venus retrograding through your 10th and 9th house. And then the late degree friends, you can probably see where I'm going with this. It's going to keep shifting back. This is why we look at these charts. I have late degree placements in my chart. My sun and my moon are late degree placements, which is how I learned that these charts don't always look the same. All right, so 21 to 5 degrees for you late degree friends is pretty much in the 9th house. So you might not have as strong of a presence, if at all, in that 10th house. It's going to be more centered in the 9th house. Now, since the 10th house is work and career, if your career is in a 9th house rulership, like teaching, learning, international connections, working with spiritual work, something like that, it could have a secondary effect in your 10th house, but that's not where the primary transit is occurring for you all later in the sign. All right, so what does it mean? So basically, opportunities from the past tend to come in. Okay, let's just draw a very rudimentary version of a spider web. which is a pretty bad spider web. Okay, but let's pretend that's a spider web. I always recommend in retrogrades for people to sit back and not try to force anything, and then see what comes into the web. And what tends to come into the web when the retrograde is happening in the 10th house. Now remember, all of you may feel this in some way, but it's more the early and middle degree people that have the actual transit there. But since Venus rules money and money relates to work, everyone could have it there. So things involving money from the past are likely to come up. People owing you money and giving it to you. A friend you know from your past offering you a job. A raise or a promotion you were passed up for coming back around. Or it could be problems that you had in your work, that annoying boss, that annoying coworker, somebody that you dated that's causing a ruckus. Which, speaking of which, love in the workplace, coming back from the past, that tends to come up a lot in this particular aspect as well. So things coming back from the past, for better or worse, are going to be highlighted in that 10th house. Now, things involving money and dads. Okay, so here's dad. I'm going to give him a beard, okay, and a mustache. So here's dad, and dad is in the 10th house. So things involving money with dad could come up. Like maybe dad said, hey, if you ever need to borrow money, I'm here for you, or you need help. In the Venus retrograde, you might go to dad and say, hey, that thing where you said where I could borrow, I'm ready for that now. And then dad says, yay. And then he gives it to you. Or maybe your dad owes you money. Or maybe your dad is having problems and you have to help him with money. You see what I mean about like the combination of money, the combination of the 10th house, the combination of retrograde. We add those together and we get these infinite potentials. So anything about money, anything about work, anything about the past, anything about dads, anything about father figures, bosses, etc. That's all fair game. So the kinds of questions that are beneficial to ask in this time have to do with your workspace. Are you happy with your job? Are you going in a direction with your job that you want? Does it have the longevity and the sustainability? Are the types of hours that you're working sustainable? Anything about how things that have happened in the past are leading up to the current and future situations. And it just brings this major reevaluation, so it's like you're checking in, you're feeling in, you're not necessarily making decisions unless you have to or an opportunity comes, but you're doing this evaluation. And so the same thing with your dad, is there something involving your relationship with your dad? Do you owe him money? And he let you get away with not paying it back, but it's bothered you. And then maybe you have to go back to that, something like that. So for the 9th house, that has to do with teaching, learning, international studies, international travel, languages, anything with spiritual studies or church involvement, anything like that. When the 9th house is aspected, as it is very heavily for middle and late degree friends, you all in the early division, you might see some of this either from, a whisper coming over or from something else going on in your personal chart, but pretty much it's the middle and late degree people that have more of this going on. International energies are completely different than they were very recently, right? Because for a lot of people, this energy could bring travel. Is travel going to be up and running again by the time you listen to this? Maybe. In which case, you might find that international trips that were canceled are back on. And if not, other ways of maneuvering with international connections, how you're going to now interface with your international clients if you're not going to see them in person, like restructuring things involving international things. One of the big things that comes up is education. And this is also going to be very strong from the eclipses over the next couple of years, because the Sag-Gemini eclipses are going to really be bringing home what's being introduced by what's happening with the coronavirus and the systems breakdowns that have to do with distance learning. So distance learning, both for kids of every age and adults of every age, is going to come up in a big way. And Virgo placements might find that this education and rethinking the money of education and what you're spending. And, so a lot of people might be seriously considering, even if schools open again, if or when schools open again, might seriously be considering, now that we've had this experience doing this schooling from home, maybe we'd like to try to make this work, or vice versa, So that's a big one. Also, this can have to do with, do you need education to step into what you want to accomplish in life? Just questions, reconsidering. Is the education you have being tested? Are the philosophies you have being tested? The ninth house is very much about philosophies as well. Belief systems, things you believe. And surely a lot of people's belief systems get tested when there's trauma and drama and cataclysm, because people sometimes second guess the things that they thought they knew. So this could bring this as well. If you met somebody traveling in the past that was romantic interest, the retrograde can bring them back in. Things like this. So, combining international with love, with the past. And so you see how this works. Okay, so now let's look at, so really I can't encourage you enough to just read all the resources I put together on this. You don't want to underestimate the importance of understanding this transit, because it just covers too many areas of life, and it's too easy to make long-standing mistakes like people tend to make. Like, for instance, something that I've seen happen many times. People are either have an inheritance or they're separating from their partner and they want to get away from them. So they say, go ahead and take everything, because they're not seeing clearly in love. They have those goggles on. And then when sometime later down the road, they think, what was I thinking? I should have claimed what was mine. I really could use that money now. And so you see what I'm saying? You really want to get educated on this. But we are going to move now to the eclipse. So there's 3 eclipses: the June 5th eclipse at 15 degrees of Sagittarius. There's the June 21st eclipse at 0 degrees of Cancer. And then there's the July 5th eclipse. That's another lunar one at 13 degrees of Capricorn. The reason why we're brushing on the eclipses now, even though the first one isn't until the beginning of June, is because 4 to 6 weeks before the eclipses, it's a hot spot. Okay, so I want to draw you a little visual for this. Eclipse cycles go over a period of years, and every 6 months we've got the eclipses. So there are storylines at play during the time that those eclipses are occurring. During the time, the closer you get to the actual eclipses, it's like putting a flame under a pot and the energy starts boiling. And then it's active again right after, and then it kind of, it simmers down. But things could still happen because the storyline's intact. But then it gets closer again, and then it starts to heat up. And that time of heating up, 4 to 6 weeks before and 4 to 6 weeks after, and it could be even 8 weeks before. So really in April, you might start seeing, and even sooner, the news and the types of things that these eclipses are going to bring up for you. So that's why it's important that we talk about them early, because very likely the manifestations are going to start happening early. So May is prime time for all of the eclipses to start manifesting, but especially that June 5th one at 15 degrees of Sagittarius. This is the beginning of our new cycle. Now, in the past, I had gone into painstaking detail about what these eclipses could look like within the actual horoscope. But because the horoscopes tend to get really long when that happens, what I've done now is I've created this 12-part eclipse series that has eclipses through each sign and house. And so what I'm going to do in the videos for the horoscopes is say, here's a brief overview of what this looks like. These are the signs and houses that will be aspected for early, middle, and late degree placements. And then I'll refer you to, if you go to AnnieHelpsYouTV.com or just Annie Botticelli YouTube, my homepage will have them. And then I'll tell you exactly which ones to look for more detail. Okay, so that will take a little pressure off the horoscopes. Okay, so 15 degrees of Sagittarius for early degree placements. There. It's going to be in the 4th house. And what's that about there? So we'll talk about what that means, but we'll just put early 4th. Okay, and then the middle degree, losing my things here. Middle degree, that's going to be on the line between the 3rd and 4th house. Okay, so 3rd or 4th house manifestation for middle degree Virgos. And then late degree friends, get some of this busyness off of here. that's more likely to be in the third house. Okay, there could be some whispers in the fourth, but third house is more prominent. So again, I'll just give you a quick overview of what that looks like, and then definitely, so what you're going to do, let me tell you where you're going to go for this. So early and middle, got third, possibly some, oh no, what did we say? It was middle and late third, and then early and middle fourth. So you want to look for my video, middle and late, called Eclipses in Gemini or third house. Okay, and that's going to tell you all about that. And then early and middle, friends, you want to look for eclipses in Cancer or fourth house. And that's going to be lots of examples of what I've seen over the years of tracking these things, what types of things I see. But basically, the fourth house things have to do with home and family, things coming in, things coming out, you know, housing changes, real estate things, drama, build up, new beginnings, endings with home and family. The third house has to do with the drama, the build up, the beginnings, the endings, you know, all of these things in your communication sector with your devices. And also you have to be extra careful driving. And I always have to give my example. When I had eclipses in the third house, I had 3 issues with my vehicle, which I usually don't have any issues with my vehicle. Okay, so one of them, a snowy tree branch, crushed my windshield. Nobody was in the car at the time, but it still crushed my windshield. I went to go roll down my window, another window, and it shattered. Fortunately, it had been tinted, so the tint held it, so it didn't go all over the place. And then the third was that somebody got into a big accident where my car was like really, basically somebody was sleeping and hit us from behind at a light, and it crushed the whole back of my car, which was in the shop for over a month. Everybody was okay from it, including the driver. But it puts pressure on your vehicles. Now, I'm not saying you're going to have a car accident, and I don't want you to be worried, but I'm saying that there's more of this dicey energy around the communication in the vehicles. And I've had people tell me that me telling them this saved their lives, because texting while walking, texting while biking, I don't think those things should happen anyway. I don't want to be rude, but I think it's common sense that if you're walking or biking, you shouldn't be texting. But if you do this, maybe feel into not doing it around the eclipse season. I had one person write to me and say, I was texting and walking, and I was about to step in the street. Your words came in my head. I stopped, and if I didn't stop, I would have gotten smashed by a car. So this is just like, you have to be extra careful with your physical body and your mobility at this time, and your devices. I've had many a person say, oh, Annie, I dropped my phone in the toilet. You know, I spilled coffee on my computer, and these things happen anyway, but when you have this placement here, it does increase the odds. So, okay, so make sure you go see all of those resources. Make sure you, and I'm going to put all of the Venus retrograde links in the notes below this video, so that you can really be ready for the energies and make the most of them.
Okay, so definitely look in the notes below this video. If you click the little arrow that says more underneath the video, it will reveal written notes. In those notes, I have the links to my Venus retrograde video. I have the links to the blogs for Venus retrograde through the signs and houses. And I also have the link to loomlife.com, which is where you can register for that free class on claiming victory from viruses. And you can also see my other resources, including my course, Becoming a Professional Astrologer. Astrology is always important, but in these times of what the types of things that are going on now, understanding astrology in a different way can be very, very helpful to our own individual peace and process, and for helping others. So if you want to learn to do that, you can check that out at loomlife.com as well, LUME life.com. And you can see more blogs at anniehelpsyou.com. I have lots and lots of blogs. And at cozybysweetstarlight.com, you can, again, this link will be in the notes underneath as well. You can find written horoscopes by me and Astrology Kissed blogs, how to use astrology in your day-to-day in wonderful ways. Most of the resources that I create for you are free, so make sure that you tap into those. I only have a very small amount of paid services compared to my free resources, and those are for people who want to go deeper into my teachings and my work. But otherwise, just know that there's so much for you. Just explore the websites that I'm sending you to. So I hope you have a wonderful month. I hope that you can stay positive and make the most of the opportunities that are coming to us through these transits, the big ones and the small ones. Venus retrograde is actually a big one, but it's kind of dwarfed in some ways underneath the titans of the zodiac clashing in these Capricorn placements. But it still is going to have Venus retrograde, even though it's on this different level than these big guys. It's really going to have a lot of effect on your day-to-day experience during this month and beyond. So I do hope you have the best month possible, and I'll see you soon. Bye.